Hey, everybody, say hello to Edward Norton, please. Welcome to the show.
Great to see you again.
How are you?
Very well.
You good?
Yeah.
The last time you were on the air, we talked about Pride and Glory, a much different kind of tone movie.
Yeah, a little bit.
Very heavy and kind of like I was watching, going, holy Christ. This one has a little bit of that, but it certainly it's a lot funnier. Is this a comedy?
Yeah, for sure. I think a dark, twisted comedy from the mind of Tim Blake Nelson, who's dark and twisted.
For sure.
Yeah. No, it's very funny. You know, sometimes you read things and I was laughing the whole way through it, and that's always a good sign to me.
And it's a neat one too, because it's one of those comedies where about partway into the end of the second act, all of a sudden people start dying, and you go, "Whoa, wait a minute!
Yeah.
This comedy has become."
Okay, no, don't tip it.
No, I'm not talking who.
No.
I didn't say who did.
Yeah, that, and obviously, it's about identical twins, and I've seen people do interesting things playing twins. But there were things about the way Tim was imagining these twins interacting with each other that I thought would be just, obviously really difficult to do well. He wanted to have these pretty complicated moving shots where the twins are, actually interacting physically and walking around with each other. And, every actor wants a good role, so like if you give any actor 2 good roles, like they're gonna come running. So I think it's fun. It was fun.
You've played a lot of characters who've had distinct personality sides, but to play 2 different people, is it true that you actually had to look at the work of Jean-Claude Van Damme in Double Impact?
Yeah, that was the first one I went to.
That's the first one I went to.
Jeremy Irons in
Dead Ringers,
Dead
right?
Ringers, and then Jean-Claude Van Damme.
You made the right choice, absolutely. I know you've done stuff in the past. You've done some stuff that's comedic. You have a lot of confidence as an actor, I'm sure, but when you step in and have to do a comedic role, in the same movie that you have to do kind of a dramatic role,
yeah.
Are you the kind of guy that has a lot of confidence about you on the set that day when you have to make someone laugh?
Well, it's funny. This movie, this isn't, I mean, I think if you got thrown into the pool with like Seth Rogen and Jonah Hill and guys like that, then, the heat would be on to be funny in a way that very few people are. But with this, the characters were so well written. The characters, the characters had lines that were so funny that it's almost more, to me, a classical acting kind of challenge, which is just find the models for those voices and things like that. And Oklahoma's fun. I mean, I drove up into Oklahoma by myself for about a week and hung around in these areas and went to bars and talked to people. And I mean, you couldn't make this stuff up, and it's like the language that comes out of people. I just sat there with my BlackBerry, like going, no, say that again, just like.
Did they know what you were doing? Do you tell people I'm researching a role? Or
Sometimes, if they know who I am. I didn't have that problem. Like in Oklahoma, I walked around. I went to a museum. It was Labor Day weekend last year, and I went to a museum and kind of. It was a museum of logging. It was a logging museum.
That's spectacular.
Yeah, it was.
But that's a blue-collar, built-the-country museum, right?
No, it was fantastic, actually. But what I did was just I kind of fell in behind families that were walking through it and just listening to things people were saying. And the phrases, like, I mean, I got gold out of these like families in the logging museum. Like,
did they know who you were?
No.
No? Did that make you feel good or bad?
Oh, good. Yeah. Good. Yeah. That's good. Then maybe someone out there is gonna still, I remember I was in New Zealand one time. And I went to see. I was in this tiny town, and there was only one little movie theater, and the only thing they were playing was You've Got Mail, and I came out of it, and there's these 2 old New Zealand ladies, and one of them turns to the other one and says like, who was that fella? And the other one goes, Tom Hanks, I think, and the other one goes, I like him, he's got potential. And I remember thinking, like, there's somewhere in the world where Tom Hanks still just has potential. Yeah. I like it. But I love it.
As an actor, that's amazing, because for the most part, the more people learn about you, the harder it is for them to see a character, right?
Totally. No, that's what I mean. I mean, I think it really, it's never more fun than when you feel like somehow it's going to break across people that you're not going to get in the way of the thing itself. I mean, it gets harder and harder, I think.
Do you have to work at it? Do you make conscious decisions?
Well, I think I've thought about it a lot. because sometimes things come along and it's just too tempting. You want to work on it, or it's people. You know, this spring I really wasn't that inclined to work on anything. But the guy who directed The Painted Veil, who I really, really admired and became friends with, really wanted to do something. And you know, and sometimes you kind of get it up for a friend or for a reason, you know, something that's compelling. But more and more, I've thought that looking at actors whose work I admire and who continue to sort of shock me or really surprise me, I think a lot of it has to do with working less over time. I mean, and letting more time pass between, you know, when you're asking people to kind of go along with things that you're trying to disappear into a little bit.
Is it true that you got another De Niro film coming up?
That's the one we did in the spring.
In the spring. So for you, a guy who's clearly well known, maybe not in all the parts of New Zealand, but or Oklahoma, but when you get to be in a scene with somebody who has, you know, done what you do for much longer and is that guy, is it easier for you, or do you look for those kind of situations where you don't have to carry a scene by yourself and maybe bear all the weight of that?
Well, you know, I did the film that I did with De Niro before. I did just because he and Marlon Brando were in it. Really, that was an example. Right? Yeah.
You shot that in Montreal.
We shot it in Montreal. Yeah. And I you know, it was a genre film. It was heist thing. It was fun, but really at the end of the day, I was like, how many chances will you get to necessarily work with these guys? And so I did it really just for the story, for the poster, you know, like. But
that's a good reason.
Yeah, come on.
You didn't say I really need to be in a film with Hilary Duff, right?
Yeah, no,
you picked Brando.
Hey, she's great, you know. But you know, I thought, you know, if I walk down the street and I see like Marlon Brando, Robert De Niro, and so-and-so, I'm gonna be like, rah! So I was like, you know,
totally.
If you get that spot, you got to take it.
You grew up in such a fascinating place. You grew up in a really progressive part of America that most people don't even know existed. Like a community that
yeah, it was like a planned community, but
with healthcare and all this like
yeah, not so much health. It was more the way that it was this concept in the '60s of designing a community so that development was planned, and people of mixed incomes. Neighborhoods were designed so that you had all income levels living in neighborhoods, and much more integrated socioeconomically, racially. And it was really interesting place to grow up.
The first time you left and went to the other part of America, what that was like?
Well, in some ways, you know, I went on to live in New Haven and live in New York, and they were much tougher cities than where I grew up. But at the same time, I actually felt, you know, I went to a public high school that was very, you know, people from all backgrounds, and when I got up to these cities, I felt like there was other people I knew who were way more thrown by the rough and tumble of the city than I was.
When were you in New Haven?
Just in college. I went to college.
Well, yeah, I'm just trying to think. Were you there when Van Halen had their legendary tour? the New Halen show?
Yeah, I don't remember Van Halen going through. There was a club in New Haven that was famous called Toads that people I saw the Chili Peppers at Toads. It was like, you know, 80 people there, and
that's crazy.
We saw a lot of great bands there.
You used to go to Algonquin Park as a kid, didn't you?
Yeah, I've been up there quite a bit. Up around North Bay and
we got a half clap.
Got a half clap.
I mean, that means they're from Sudbury, so they're close.
So Sudbury or Sundridge, North Bay. It's nice up there. I love up there. My grandfather used to go fishing in Algonquin in the '50s, if you can believe that, and I used to spend a lot of time up there. It's actually, I was up there recently. I couldn't believe they've pushed, like Route 11 used to be literally like 2 lanes, and they've pushed, you know, the 400. I mean, you know, it's now like a big double lane highway going almost all the way.
The city's like the desert, right? It's encroaching.
It's amazing. I couldn't believe the size of the highway pushing on up to North Bay from here.
Absolutely. You ready to play some true or false? We need to know some stuff about you.
I'm not promising anything, but
at the end of the day, and they don't need to know, so you don't have to tell
see
the
my
truth.
defensive posture.
I like it. Yeah. Very aware of it.
Yeah.
You speak Japanese.
Yeah, I used to speak it better than I do now, but true.
You can actually help teach English because you appeared in an English language instructional video called Only in America.
Damn you, true.
Yeah? Was it like mid-90s, early 90s?
Yeah, mid-90s probably.
Jim Morrison appeared in a video to help recruit people to his university in Florida, so you have...
Is that right?
Yeah.
Great. See, a lot of people have these like, you know, appearances on Growing Pains or whatever. Like, I never had any of that. Never, nothing, no television, no nothing, and you know, that was the one thing.
The one thing. There you go.
And you found it.
Pilot's license?
I have, yeah, I have my pilot's license.
Is it true? I mean, I've heard this, but you played guitar for whole 2 shows?
I was friends with those guys, and Eric, the guitarist, was a friend of mine too, and there was a stretch where they had done a new record and they had overtracked a lot of stuff, and I just filled in. I sat in on a few. True or false, you might not be sitting here in this context, I mean, maybe as a Foreign Service guy, but as an actor, if it wasn't for somebody who's Betsy the babysitter. Yeah, I had this. I did have this babysitter when I was a kid who was really into acting, and she was the one who signed me up for acting classes. So she was on, and she was from my little hometown. You know, she was on Broadway and Les Mis and musical theater stuff. Not really my bag, but you're not going to do musical? Even Travolta did a musical. I did one. I did the Woody Allen. The second movie I did was. But do you feel comfortable when you get into that? No. There you go. The film is called Leaves of Grass. Edward Norton. Good to see you, man. Thanks for coming in.